Let's take a look at where AI is still failing in medical device compliance documentation. And personally, I think this is super exciting because it shows you where the future lies for, I guess, human jobs in this space, including mine. So I work at Open Regulatory, and this is a company for mainly helping startups bring their medical device to market, and mainly software. So we offer free templates on our website, a lot of free content, and also a paid but also free tier software as a service, which automates stuff for you, which we will be using today in this demo. So let's take a look at one real world use case, which one specific auditor I've talked to here in the medical device space actually looks at or raises quite often with customers, and that's cybersecurity requirements. So cybersecurity requirements have become increasingly important because, well, I guess historically companies tend to ship crappy software, and that crappy software tends to have cybersecurity problems and gets hacked, and that's generally not a good outcome, especially in the medical field. So one of the standards to look at here is the IEC 81001-5-1. It's definitely not very intuitive, this whole sequence of numbers. And you can purchase it for only 320 Swiss francs. So that's a ridiculous price for a PDF, but there are ways around this. As I talk about in other videos, so there are way cheaper ways of getting this. Anyway, getting to the point is now in our eQMS, we maybe have an SOP which describes our software development. So an SOP is like this document which explains to you a process to go through how you develop your software. And this is one of many regulatory requirements. By the way, free template in our software, so you can just copy paste this and look at this. And maybe now I have this requirement by the auditor, and the auditor kind of like says, hey, you should actually include cybersecurity requirements in this based on this standard. And now what do we do? Well, we could hand this off to our AI model, and then we hit edit with AI. We get this fancy chat interface, and now we kind of like say, please change this document to also include the requirements, the cybersecurity requirements based on the, I now copy paste this because this is just like a terrible sequence of numbers. Okay, send that, and then we hand it off to the AI, and the AI should be back with results in a few seconds. All right, so now we have the AI response, and it says like, okay, the document was updated to include the requirements of the standard, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's take a look. Collapse this, scroll down. And you see like, oh man, we have the first few changes already. So here in the summary, it added the sentence incorporating requirements based on the IEC, blah, 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 blah. And then here like added, okay, it integrates risk management, blah, 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 usability, but also cybersecurity activities. And I won't go through all of the changes which it made here. So additions are in green and deletions are in red. But you see, like it essentially made like a gigantic tons of changes, including like even like introducing new roles like a cybersecurity officer and new documents which should be created as inputs and as outputs, like a cybersecurity risk assessment, and as an output the cybersecurity risk management report. So that's actually really, really cool. And superficially, you might think, cool, I'm done. I'll save this and I'll be done. But no, this is actually a pretty good example, in my opinion, where AI models still fail when it comes to medical device compliance, because it's kind of like missing the somewhat high-level view of things. I think that the first criticism you could add here is, well, it should have changed this table, right? So because we have this table on the top, this is, I guess, like how our templates are structured. So in this table in the top, you kind of like always mention like a standard and like sections of each of the standard, and which section in the document corresponds and implements the section of the standard. So and we're missing a table for the for this cybersecurity standard, right? So the table is missing, and instead it kind of like just took the easy way out and just like added it in the summary and said like, hey, we're also covering this standard. So that's pretty cool. Not really. So you actually still have to go through the standard and map the requirements to document sections if your document has this sort of stuff. And like a bigger question kind of like really is like, okay, but what super hard requirements did it really incorporate here? And you can actually see it didn't get super specific. It just everywhere said like, hey, yeah, we're also adding cybersecurity requirements, and they are defined somewhere here, and there's an output somewhere here, but it's not really going into detail what those requirements really are. And I think like the sub problem of this is that these that technically the large language models don't really have access to the contents of these PDFs because, well, firstly, they're like paywalled, and there's probably all sorts of legal issues behind that. So in my understanding, the LLM here is just kind of like guessing what the standard would be about based on like content it was trained on, but that content might not have included the actual PDF with the actual content. So you're just kind of like getting some sort of document changes which are which sound very related to it, but which are not very concrete yet. So that's not very great. And finally, the biggest point also is like we're just editing one document here, right? So and the big question is like, should this actually be the document we're editing for this purpose, or shouldn't we be editing another document or multiple documents including this document? So this sort of like high-level view of like, well, what's really the change to everything we have to make based on these cybersecurity requirements? This high-level view is kind of like missing right now because we only can edit one document at a time. That being said, that sounds more like a software engineering problem, so that's a feature we might be able to ship in the future. But maybe this was one interesting data point to kind of like see, well, AI models are not going to replace regulatory people right now, maybe in the future, but for now there are still a few limitations.